Hey there, Legal Tea listeners. This is your host, Jenny Roselle. Today's episode of Legal Tea is a cautionary tale. And normally on cautionary tale episodes, we talk about like a really specific real life case with real life clients and real life facts. But today is going to be a tad different. Today, it's our first episode in the new year. Happy New Year. We're now in 2022. Does anyone else think that 2021 absolutely flew by? I mean, holy cow. I feel like I say that every year though. So what are we talking about today, you ask? Well, today we're going to be talking about the top 5 biggest and most costly mistakes I saw clients make in 2021. And that way, maybe in 2022, or whenever you hashtag do your estate plan, you don't make similar mistakes. Alrighty, let's do it. Let's dive in. Mistake number 1 of top mistakes I saw in 2021 was people that passed away and they had no estate planning documents at all. And I feel like this one really goes without needing to be said or talked about. I think the latest statistic I actually heard was that roughly 50% or so of people do not do any estate planning at all. I'm not sure what I can say besides, do you want to be in the driver's seat of who gets your assets and how? Or do you want your respective state to decide who gets what for you? So, for example, I have a case right now I'm working on, I think we're close to finishing it up, where the family consisted of dad, mom, and 2 kids. So dad passed away, which was super unexpectedly, and the house was just in his name alone. And side note, I see this happen all the time for a variety of reasons, so if you're like this, pay attention. So dad had a will. He did not have a will. He did not have a will. That's the whole mistake here, right? So dad did not have a will, which meant his estate assets go by what are called the intestacy laws of Indiana. And we've talked about intestacy laws on here before, but in case you're new here, basically intestacy laws are basically a built-in estate plan for how assets are distributed when people pass away without a last will and testament. So like dad here. One would think the intestacy laws would say, oh, everything would go to his wife. Wrong. Wrong. Actually, the intestacy laws say that half of his estate goes to his wife and half goes to the kids. Thankfully, in this case, everyone was on the same page. So in this case, what we did is we just had the kids waive their interest, disclaim their interest in dad's estate, so that the house could just go straight to mom. The issue with this is, well, first, what if the kids or even just one was estranged? Maybe one was a bonehead and wouldn't be willing to give it back to mom. And 2, another thing here is, my rule of thumb is that if you're making me, the lawyer, work more than just a very routine case, there's a good chance that comes with a slightly higher price tag. And in my defense, to be honest, if I'm working more and harder, why would there not be an increase in the fee? So yeah, people, hashtag do your estate plan. And seriously, just do it. Like Nike, just do it. Mistake number 2 of top mistakes I saw in 2021 was people that passed away and their estates could have easily avoided probate, but they didn't. So let's first start with talking about what that probate word even means. It's a word that gets tossed around so often, and so often it also has a lot of misconceptions around it. So probate is a legal court process that, 1, occurs if someone does not have a last will and testament, or 2, if someone just has a last will and testament. And that's a really common misconception. People think that if you do a will, that avoids probate. A little newsflash, probate is the legal process that makes the words on the will come to life, actually. Probate, the process, takes assets from the decedent, so the deceased person, and gets them to their beneficiaries. Specifically, the assets that probate governs are assets 1 in the decedent's name alone, and 2 have no beneficiaries attached. And there are a few different ways to ensure your estate stays out of probate land, but it's my best recommendation to really surround yourself with qualified professionals, like someone like me, an estate planning attorney, or a financial advisor, or an accountant. And what's kind of unique about these professionals specifically is they look at things from different perspectives too. So what I mean by this is sometimes financial advisors can easily place beneficiary designations on assets to ensure probate is avoided. But the attorney would be able to identify, wait, do we want money freely flowing to that person? What if they're a minor? What if they're disabled? What if they battle personal issues like addictions, for example? And there are ways to accomplish probate and leave your beneficiaries in a great position where they will be able to succeed. And the deal about probate, I always often describe probate as there are 3 non-negotiables about it. And you have to just decide whether you care or don't really care about it. And if you don't really care, probate's not that scary. But otherwise, the 3 non-negotiables are, first, it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes at least, the bare minimum is going to be about 4 to 6 months. Second, it's a public process. If you're going through the court, it is a public record, meaning your nosy neighbors can see what's going on in your estate. And 3, it's costly. And it's costly from a legal fee standpoint. So a lot of people shout from the rooftops about avoiding probate. And so long as you proactively work to make sure your estate avoids probate and accomplishes your wishes, that's a win-win, right? Okay, on to our next mistake. Mistake number 3 of top mistakes I saw in 2021. Mistake number 3, keeping your documents in a safe space. A couple things along this topic. First, hear me loud and clear. Let's not put estate planning documents in a bank safety deposit box, okay? Banks, rightfully so, get really weird when someone else besides you tries to gain access to the box. And in fact, there have been times where banks have refused to let family members access the box without a court order. So I always tell people in these situations, you have to ask yourself why. Why are the banks doing that? Well, it's because of all the bad eggs. It's because there have been people that have maliciously tried to gain access to a box that had no business being in there and or had no legal authority to be in there. And then the bank could have gotten sued, or maybe they did get sued. I often recommend a fireproof safe at home as a nice, safe place for your documents. And from there, you can either provide copies of your documents to the people in your documents, so say beneficiaries or power of attorneys or executors, or you can just tell those people where you're going to keep the documents, like in your fireproof safe, and maybe a good idea to tell them where the fireproof safe is too. I'm honestly not the biggest fan in the world of that first option of giving copies to your people, only because what if you change them and do new documents? You'll have to remember who has them and have to remember to get them all yanked back. Still along this same topic, this year I've seen so many posts on the State Bar Association listserv, which a listserv is just like a glorified message board for estate and probate attorneys. So there have been so many posts from fellow attorneys that the posts are looking for so-and-so's documents because the family can't find them. Newsflash, there's no secret database out there that stores these documents. The state of Indiana here, the state trusts you to put them in a safe place and ensure you are setting your people up for success. A few episodes back, if you've been following along, is I talked about a case that I worked on where assets were held inside the name of a trust, and the family couldn't find a copy of the trust. No one had any idea who mom went to, like attorney-wise, to get the trust created. So what did I have to do? I had to petition the local probate court to ask for help, which forced the family to hire me, aka completely unnecessary legal fees. So yeah, let's just make sure we keep those documents in a nice, safe spot. And make sure we have people who know where you're keeping said documents. Okay, next mistake. Mistake number 4 of top mistakes I saw in 2021. This one reminds me of the saying, the only constant in life is change. It's such a good one. Changes galore. And I'm talking about changes in the law, changes in your family, changes in your assets, changes in taxes. And this is probably not earth-shattering news, but oftentimes estate planning is not a one-time thing. Many times we can get a plan in place to take care of changes that, are reasonably expected. So say you're going to have future children, or say you expect children to have children, so future grandchildren. But sometimes it's difficult, if not nearly impossible, to take care of things that occur, such as divorces, marriages, receiving an inheritance. What about starting or changing assets? Changes, like I said, changes in the law, changes in taxes. The thing to take away from this mistake, well, it's 2 things, plural, 2 things. First, you just have to accept that estate planning is likely not going to be a one-time thing. And maybe your situation is so straightforward that it is, and consider yourself lucky. But what about changes in the law? What about changes in taxes? Are you keeping up with those? Second, be sure you establish a relationship with an estate planning attorney and look at it as a relationship, not a transaction. I have a funny story kind of along this same line. So I specifically recall when I first started seeing clients as a little wee one, and a gentleman who had kind of in our prior dealings been very straight and to the point. So in a meeting, he asked me my age. You know how sometimes your head says one thing, but yet you wisely and intentionally say something else? Well, that's what was happening. In my head, hey, we all have head trash, right? So in my head, I thought, what is he going to question my age? Like question my experience? Instead, I was like, okay, I'm just going to share my age. And then I respectfully asked, is there a concern that you want to discuss? And to my total surprise, he perked up and said, oh, no, actually, no. I just wanted to run the math kind of in my head because if life takes its normal course, in all likelihood, you'll be here and still practicing when me and her, talking about his wife, pass away. And that is true. If I had a quarter for the amount of times I have heard people say, Jenny, I have no idea if my prior attorney is still practicing, like retired, or maybe he or she may even be dead. The amount of times I've heard that, if I had a quarter, I'd be a rich lady. Wouldn't it just be easier to establish a relationship with someone in their firm rather than start anew every time? And the last mistake number 5 of top mistakes I saw in 2021. And it's probably the biggest one. And I'm going to actually say this one as a question rather than a statement. Why did it take a really scary pandemic to jolt people into realizing that we are not immortal? And I'm actually asking this seriously. lately when I've had to share, like if I'm at a gathering or something and someone asks me what I do for a living and I say, oh, I'm an estate and elder law attorney, a common response from them is, oh, I bet you've been really busy these last couple of years due to COVID. In fact, we have very, very busy. And it's honestly a combination of people realizing, hey, we should probably get our ducks in a row. And also, it's the second part of the combination is people that we've lost. My firm handles after death administration too, like probate and trust administration. So this mistake should go without being said, but people, unless someone has some magic pill that they are not sharing, we are going to all pass away. Why would you not plan for that to happen? It's inevitable. And having a clean estate plan with a nice pretty bow on top would be the most beautiful gift you can leave your family, friends, beneficiaries, etc. So just think about that. Do it for me. Do it for me. Okay, so that wraps up our top 5 mistakes that clients made in 2021 by Jenny Roselle, an estate planning and elder law attorney in Indiana. Take that, take what you've learned today and put it into action. Hashtag do your estate plan, my friends. I promise you'll experience a big old sigh of relief in getting it done. Alrighty, next week's topic is a current event, a current trend, and something I've seen or run across that I think would be interesting on here. During next week's episode, we're going to be talking about the Denver Broncos. So kind of a random thing to chat about, but there's been some talk about the future of the Denver Broncos team because the ownership of the team is actually held by a trust after someone passed away. So yeah, next Tuesday, we're going to dive into that and see what's going on there. So until then, Legal Tea listeners, be well and let's make 2022 an awesome year.